Alright, before we go anywhere, I can't talk about these games without brushing on spoilers. So if you haven't played them and want to experience them untainted, then stop this now and go play them. They are both good, but Undertale much more so than Beginner's Guide. So if you can only play one, then play Undertale, and better yet, do it now. Let's have a brief pause so that everybody that hasn't played them can leave and go play them now. Okay then, that should be long enough. Now, basically everything that I can praise in Beginner's Guide is also done in Undertale and is done better. The reason I want to talk about both of them, and I recommend both of them, is that their biggest draw card, at least in my opinion, is the emotional draw of their story and how very well embedded it is in the gameplay. Now, for the mercy of Satan or whichever deity you prefer, do not ruin these games by going and looking up how they end, or watching some playthrough, or even watching this review if you want to play them. Leave if you have not. They really hit their best by actually being played. But let's back up for a moment. Gaming at its core is one of two things. Either a fun pastime, which should be driven by fun, probably challenging, but at least engaging gameplay, or an interactive medium for storytelling. And some great games that do both, but you can focus on one or the other and still be a good game. Personally, I rank both of these games squarely in the second of those categories, a good story. Because at its core, Beginner's Guide has very little gameplay and basically an interactive story only, and Undertale got to the point of frustrating the shit out of me at points, but I damn well wanted to push through for that story payoff. Alright, last warning, at the very least if you haven't played Undertale, go away and play it now. Do it! Do it! Now what both of these games did, and why I want to bring them up, is drop a twist at the end that honestly made me feel like shit for having been a participant in it. They both turn the gameplay around on the player and make you the unwitting villain of the scenario, unless of course you've preempted this and play outside of what you naturally would do. Like as if you had already heard about it, read it, or played it beforehand. In both cases, an alternative layout of the game is presented after you finish it, or perhaps if you already have said preemptive knowledge for how things happen, and you can decide not to follow along. Honestly, that sums up Beginner's Guide as far as I'm prepared to go. Some of its gameplay will have been on screen by now, and hopefully I've got it on screen right now, and it really isn't all that exciting. The emotional stab of the story is what you are here for. But, on the other hand, Undertale. You've probably already heard Undertale recommended by every person and critic out there, but I'm going to throw in my reasoning here too. Undertale's gameplay is very straightforward and likewise very challenging, to the point of being frustratingly so if you are mainly here for the story. It is a matter of mostly dodging enemy attack patterns in one of the most direct to the point ways that it could be, and then you get a turn in a traditional turn-based combat way. But in that lies the story as well. The gameplay pushes you to want any advantage you can take, and in turn encourages you to go down the path of the dark side. It is a brilliant mix of gameplay and story, to the point that it actually pulls off a fourth wall break that makes sense. In the end, both of these games are proof that you can get a hard-hitting emotional result out of a game's story. It is hard to recommend Beginner's Guide at full price, since it only really offers an hour and a half of content, but on a good discount, worth a look in. On the other hand, Undertale has enough gameplay and replayability in it that its price point is well justified. But obviously you already knew that because you've played them before you watched this video.